Hello everybody, good afternoon, welcome to the United Stand. We've got some explosive comments coming out from Anthony Martial in an interview he's done with French Football where he's basically talking about the treatment he's had at Manchester United in his time here. And I think it's an expose that, look, whether it's right or wrong, footballers are allowed to talk to the media, and Anthony Martial is probably somebody that actually is quite private. So when he speaks, it does resonate because he's basically calling out those people who call him lazy, fake, doesn't care. And some really interesting, there's stuff about Mourinho, which we'll talk about, but the main thing is Solskjaer. And I think if you go straight to, if you've not seen these quotes, we're going to dissect them here. But the last 2 seasons, I've regularly played injured. People don't know that. I couldn't accelerate during the 4 months following the COVID season. Coach Solskjaer tells me that he needs me to play, so I end up playing. He then goes on to say that given my game, if I can't accelerate, it becomes very complicated and I can't set on fire. The coach never bothered to tell the media about this. Obviously, I end up getting injured. When I come back, I don't play anymore. And he said, I took it very badly. I had a feeling of injustice. You're asked to sacrifice yourself for the team, and behind you are dismissed. For me, it's almost treachery. That's all I hate. I can be blamed, but not for being fake. And this is really interesting because this is a current Manchester United player who, over the last 2 years, has had a lot of criticism and is basically coming out and saying, look, I've got to take that criticism, it's football, but ultimately there's a story here that never came out, and it's not right. And effectively, he's saying that, Manchester United under Solskjaer, in the Solskjaer reign, mismanaged him and sort of hung him out to dry a little bit as well. And the interesting thing is, we've had this conversation many a time about Marcus Rashford. We saw it. Marcus Rashford, time and time again, was played injured. We knew it. I remember him with his shoulder problem. Solskjaer would select him and you'd think, I remember doing shows and saying, he needs a rest. The lad needs a rest. He can't jump in a 50-50 because of his shoulder, and you're playing him on the left wing for Manchester United. And we know that Solskjaer did this. Look, was that because he didn't have the depth? I forget what our options were up front in that season when he was using Rashford like that. Look, to be honest with you, I look at Ranić last year. Ronaldo was being overused. So sometimes managers are hung out to dry themselves with limited options. But if what Martial is saying is true, and there's no reason not to believe it's true, then he is exposing again that Solskjaer was playing players injured for short-term benefit. And let's not forget, Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial, I know they're approaching their mid-20s now, but a couple of years ago they weren't. And it's just not conducive to building a structure at Manchester United again. And this is what we're talking about. You can't mismanage young players like that. Martial and Rashford were 2 of my favourite players 4 or 5 years ago. Probably less than that, to be fair. And over the last couple of years, I've had to sit here and say countless times, I like Rashford, I like Martial, but to be honest with you, I can't hide the fact that they've been crap. And yet you get stories like this and you go, well, hold on a minute. There's probably mitigating circumstances here. And I think Rashford struggled with injuries for 2 years. That's been very clear, and we've seen it on the pitch. And we've now got Anthony Martial saying that he's not really been fit for the last couple of years. He's had to play injured to help the team out. It's affected his game. And he's using words such as, I've been treated badly. I feel I've been treated badly. I feel like, the manager didn't say anything about it. Where was the quote about that? He said that, Solskjaer tells me he wants me to play. The coach never bothered to tell the media. I end up getting injured, and then I'm not playing anymore. And, I can be blamed, but I'm not going to be blamed for being a fake. It's almost treachery, he says it. And that's a current Manchester United player saying that about the current team that he's playing for, because it will be coaching advice, of course, but it will also be fitness departments, etc. But it's really interesting, isn't it? Because when I was listening to this, I was like, well, hold on a minute. All right, Anthony Martial's French, and we know that the media can be a little bit biased towards British players against foreign players. We see it all the time. But Marcus Rashford's English, and Marcus Rashford's had exactly the same problems that Anthony Martial has had over the last 2 years. Clearly, both players have been overplayed when injured, and it's caused problems with their game. If you're a Premier League footballer and you're off by 5%, you will look bad. And I think that's what Martial is saying. That, look, effectively what he said is that given my game, if I can't accelerate, it becomes very complicated, and I can't I can't play well. But the sad thing for me about this is, and I think Martial doing this is very good, and hopefully he can get back fit. But the two positives for me, one, if he has been carrying injuries for the last 2 years, maybe Ten Hag, being a proper coach who understands about development of players and looking after players, and there's a real contrast here. You've got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on the word of Rashford and Martial that they've been playing injured a lot. We've heard a lot of that now. Martial's confirmed it. So you've got a manager in Solskjaer and his coaches who are playing players injured and stunting their development. But you've then got Erik Ten Hag, who will play Anthony for 60 minutes and 60 minutes only, and then he'll take him off. And all through pre-season, the new signings, you're 45 minutes, then you're coming off. We've got a manager and a coach now who understands that you've got to look after your players. And if we can get Martial, if Martial's saying, look, I've had injury problems for the last 2 years because I've been played with injuries and stuff like that, and I've not been at my best. If he can get over this injury and we can start to see a sustained period of Martial being fit, and we get the real Martial back, this could be a real positive. Of course, I'm not saying that that's guaranteed. He may well come back and he may well get injured again and be injury prone. But there is light at the end of the tunnel with Martial. And I think that this is very important about what he said about his injury problems and being played when he's injured. The other interesting thing for me as well is that obviously, just thinking back, obviously Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, ex-Manchester United player. Michael Carrick was his assistant coach, ex-Manchester United player. You've got ex-Manchester United players in the media, whether it's Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand, Paul Scholes, Roy Keane. I'm not name-checking those people to say that they wouldn't know the truth, but you would imagine that there is some conversation in private, maybe WhatsApp groups between ex-United players, Carrick and Solskjaer, and certain ex-players in the media. Were they not informed about what was happening with Martial? Was it just kept completely secret that they were playing him when he was injured? And the reason I say that is it's somewhat unfair, and I think Martial's basically saying that himself, that he can be criticised, but he can't be accused of being fake. And what we've had, and I've heard the word lazy associated with Martial. I've heard the word bad attitude associated with Martial, not interested. I'm not going to name the people who've said that in the media. I know who they are, and I think you know who they are. Certain ex-players, etc. Sort of slating Martial over the last couple of years, quite regularly as well. And you've got a manager who knew he was playing him injured. So we will never know the truth behind this. But this is why I'm always very vocal about the bias that we sometimes get in the media towards foreign players compared to British players. And I think a lot of that bias comes down to familiarity. This is why they wanted Pochettino over Ten Hag. The media wanted Pochettino over Ten Hag because they've worked with Pochettino and he's a nice guy and they've got that familiarity with him. Ten Hag, we don't know who he is. And now we've got Ten Hag and they're starting to get to know him, they'll like him. And it's just familiarity. I think that's why we get this bias against foreign players sometimes compared to the English players, that maybe they do media work with them, maybe they know them, I don't know. But it's interesting because the criticism of Martial, if what he's saying is true, is not fair. Because let's say Marcus Rashford did this story today and said, look, for the last 2 years, I've been playing injured most of the time and I don't feel myself up until this season where I've had a good pre-season and I'm ready to go. I'm sure people would be going, well, yeah, this is the problem when you're playing someone like Rashford fit, we're going to get the real message. But Martial's saying exactly the same thing now. And when he's been criticised over the last 2 years by the media and certain sections of our fan base as well, let's be fair, let's be equal about it, then was that criticism fair? No, it wasn't. It wasn't, because everybody knows if you're playing when you're injured, it's going to impact on your performance. And that's what Martial is saying. So what I would query is, I always felt that when you get an ex-United player in the media having a go at Martial, I always thought, well, hold on a minute. Michael Carrick's assistant coach, Solskjaer's the manager. Maybe they're getting some information from the training ground that, Martial's a bit of a troublemaker or something like that. It was always in my head because I thought, well, they probably do get information from the dressing room. I mean, Scholesy said it last year, didn't he? That Lingard had told him the dressing room was a joke. So they do speak. They do find things out. And obviously, there was some bad-mouthing of Martial going on for it to be spoken about. The opinion of Martial I've seen in the media over the last couple of years isn't great. But were those media people aware of the fact that Martial was injured and being played injured? Because I don't think they were. And I think this, I'm not saying there needs to be an apology, but it just shows you that you know, you start criticising these players and saying they've got bad attitudes and not putting the effort in, this, that, and the other. This is the first time we've heard that Martial was carrying injuries through that time. And you can guarantee if it wasn't Martial and it was somebody else, we probably would be aware of that. And, you know, Martial's probably got to take a bit of the blame himself, because he's telling us this story now. Really, he needed to get that story out when he was injured, but obviously it's quite difficult to do that when you're playing under that manager. So yeah, very, very interested by his comments. He also goes on to say that about his body language. He said this. He said, basically, I have to display my disappointment after a missed opportunity so that people say, he doesn't really care. I'll tell you simply, I'm a footballer and not an actor. So that's just basically saying, look, and I've always said this about Martial. My understanding of Martial, and I know a couple of people who have been around Manchester United's training ground in the last few years. They've just said about Martial, he's quite quiet. He's quite a quiet character. Does need an arm around his shoulder at times. He's not, he doesn't do a lot of media stuff. He's a footballer, and that's what he is. And sometimes it's a bit unfair the way he gets perceived because of his facial expressions not showing a lot of emotion. That doesn't mean he's not showing a lot of emotion. And he went on to, Martial goes on to say as well, a lot of people think you have to be a little comedian, and I see players who show their rage so that the public and the media think they are motivated. All the media circus does not interest me. I cannot change to please others. And I think that's just a clarification and confirmation of that, is that, he is a player that, that's just who he is. He could act and be a bit an actor and a comedian and start raging and this, that, and the other. But ultimately, he's a footballer. And look, I for one, and I think a lot of people have hopes for Martial. I mean, he's always been a player that I really like. When he's on it, he can get you on the edge of your seat, and I think he's a fantastic player in that sense. I just hope he can get through these injury problems and, playing with a coach that knows what they're doing. He spoke about how he enjoyed Louis van Gaal as coach and how he'd give him videos to watch, and really loved his time under Louis van Gaal, and obviously was very, very he Well, look, he may have a coach that's like Van Gaal now, not necessarily in style of play, but Dutch coach, methodical, obsessive. There's a real opportunity for Martial to kickstart his career at Manchester United. He needs to stay injury-free, but it's exciting what could happen there, because obviously he's spoken badly about his time with Solskjaer. He mentioned Mourinho. I think the Mourinho thing's irrelevant, by the way, because Mourinho's at Roma via Spurs. Mourinho's long gone, and basically he said that he'd been offered the number. That he spoke about the shirt number, and he spoke about Mourinho sort of digging him out publicly, and I think at the end of the day, that's I'm not really bothered about the Mourinho stuff. What I am bothered about is the fact that he's probably been playing it quite injured, a lot like Rashford has over the last 2 years, and the fact that now we've got a proper coach who might actually look after players instead of playing them when they're injured could bode well for the likes of Rashford and Martial. We've already seen the benefits of Martial in pre-season. Obviously, he's not been fit for the main season yet. We've seen improvement with Rashford. But it's Martial bites back, isn't it? And I think that some people will say, it's another player doing an interview. Will Man United be happy? But I don't think there's any issue with that. Mourinho's in the past. Solskjaer's in the past. Ten Hag's very different to them. I'd be very surprised if any United fans or ex-players or United themselves are annoyed with what Martial said. If anything, it's a positive, because it's like, well, if he's been playing injured a lot for the last 2 years, and he has been quite injury prone for the last couple of years, if we can get him fully fit, then we could get a very, very different Anthony Martial, which I think for me is the main thing that we need to do. We need to get Anthony Martial back and playing to the best of his ability. So very, very interesting interview from Anthony Martial. I just there was something else he said as well I thought was quite interesting. Make sure you smash a like on the video, by the way. Yes. He spoke about Mourinho, injuries, of course. Van Gaal really enjoyed it. He mentioned that he was frustrated that he'd missed out on the World Cup. I think that was that must have been Mourinho that cost him that, wasn't it? But look, we just need him to get back fit. We know we need a striker, but Martial's still 26? If we can get him fit and get him playing, he could save us a lot of money. And I think that United. It's very interesting. It's very interesting that there was this period where we were you know, it's like having a racehorse, isn't it? Instead of giving it a day off, you get it, you know, it's in a great big race one on the Saturday and then you run it on the Sunday. And that's basically what we seem to be doing under Solskjaer. But for me, the criticism's unfair. There's two things, as I say, the excitement of getting him back with a proper coach who will look after him and hopefully get past his injury problems and get the best out of him. That's point one. And point two is the criticism in the media of Martial has been appalling, really. You know, oh, he doesn't look like he's interested. Oh, yeah, you know what? I've been in a, you know, I go out on a night out and, you know, there's one of the lads who's quite quiet, but he's a fantastic guy, fantastic guy. It doesn't mean that he's not enjoying himself. You know, everybody is different. And, yeah, and some of the criticism about him is just bang out of order, but you wonder how quiet United kept it that they were playing him injured. I don't know. Get your comments in below. Make sure you subscribe. We're back live at 8 o'clock, by the way, but I just wanted to react to this very interesting interview from Martial. Let's hope it's the kickstart to get rid of the injuries and start playing at full pelt again. Could be very exciting. Let's wait and see.